Located at 98 4th Street, Minus Space is a gallery that specializes in innovative, reductive, concept-based art. It was founded in 2003, and currently they're exhibiting the works of Gowanus-based artist Michael Brennan, who specializes in paintings that are inspired by smokestacks and barges and derelict advertising signs here in the area. Let's go check them out.
So Minus Space shows reductive art. Geometric abstraction is another way of putting that. Anything that deals with sort of repetition, monochrome, geometry, seriality, high tonal color. Minus Space was founded by myself and my wife, actually, Rosana Martinez. Over the years, for about 5 years, we shown with a same group of about 10 to 15 artists. But what we realized is that these shows were never really going anywhere, meaning they seemed to be sort of isolated incidents in time and space, and they never really amounted to anything. The kind of work that we do is sort of reductive, geometric-based abstraction, and this work is really not in vogue in the art world at this point. We really kind of wanted to do something that was about us and about the community of artists that are making this work, actively making it, actively in dialogue with one another. And we had some experience with the web, so we decided to take a project and put it online. And we invited those really 5 to 8 artists that we had been in contact with through shows and other sorts of activities to participate. And it went online in August of 2003 and has since increased to about 50 artists globally. We began by putting portfolios online, and then we started doing kind of online exhibitions. No one knows exactly what that means, so we had to kind of figure that out as we went along. And from there, we realized that there were some other critical problems, meaning there are very few spaces that show this kind of work. So there are very few people seeing this kind of work, physically seeing this kind of work. Therefore, there's very few curators that are going to be able to see this work and actively sort of organize exhibitions around these ideas. People that are going to review those shows, how they can review shows when there are no shows. And then lastly, collectors. I mean, how are collectors going to find this work when there's nowhere to find it? So we started thinking holistically, and we added on various new sections to our site. We started interviewing our artists and publishing those interviews on our site, which we continue to do today. We've commissioned writers to write reviews, essays, articles that we've published. We've published monographs on a couple of different artists' work. And we've gotten many sort of requests and a lot of interest from the public to come and see kind of what we do. The interesting part was that we were only online. I mean, that was our space. It was Minus Space, literally. And from there, we decided it would be a good idea to start doing physical exhibitions, sort of projects in real space.
I started working with Minus Space a few years ago. I've exhibited elsewhere, but this was sort of a special situation, and when Matthew offered me the show, I was really excited. I wanted to show the paintings in this environment, especially with the view from the window.
We do projects about every 3 months. They tend to be sort of site-specific projects, meaning not your traditional exhibition, meaning these are our installations, pieces that are specifically made for our project room in response to the space, in response to the environment that the space is located in, the neighborhood. Artists can sort of explore specific ideas, but we want them to be specific. We don't want to just be sort of a general gallery where you hang up what you've been making in the studio.
Usually when an artist creates work, they create it in one set of circumstances, like they make their paintings in Bushwick, and then they exhibit them in Chelsea. And this was a special opportunity to actually exhibit the work in the environment that it was created in. And that was sort of built into the content of the work. It relates to living here.
The Gowanus seemed like the right place for us. There are a number of artists, I don't know how, coincidentally, that make this kind of work that have kind of resettled here, Michael Brennan being one of them.
I live not too far, within walking distance from the space, from Minus Space. And I noticed when I moved out here about 1.5 years ago that several of the artists that I knew from the Bowery or from the East Village, who had studios on the Lower East Side maybe 10 years ago, they all seem to be within like 3 or 5 blocks of me now. So there's some kind of generational migration that's happening in Gowanus. A lot of artists have studios here because the buildings are the right type. And as the manufacturing businesses sort of close shop, only artists are really, they're the only kind of people that really would take over those spaces. Essentially living in this part of Brooklyn, you're in this like bowl-like basin that's surrounded by the Smith and 9th Street elevated train, the Gowanus Expressway. You're always kind of walking underneath these like hulking metal structures. If you walk underneath the Gowanus Expressway, you'll see all this archwork, lots of V's and X's and steel sort of suspended overhead, and a lot of diagonals, and it just kind of crept into my work. It's so impressive. It's like, walking underneath like a vaulted Roman aqueduct or something like that. And all these things were new to me. I moved to Gowanus maybe a year and a half ago. The other thing that's particular to this neighborhood, when you're walking around, again in this sort of canal basin area, the horizon's always blocked out, not just once, which is sort of usual in the cityscape, but twice. Like usually when you look off into the distance, there's one thing blocking the way. Let's say it's an elevated train or a bridge. And then there's something else behind or on top of that, like an expressway or something else. So there's always this sort of double blocked horizon, and that sort of crept into the form here. And then this larger area too relates maybe to having all that much more sky. You get much more of a big sky here because you're literally at the bottom of the hill that's Park Slope, which used to be called Gowanus Heights, and then Cobble Hill. So you get this full sky here that's it's unlike any other part of the city. There's a tradition, I guess, an abstraction of sort of distilling things to their essence. So rather than say painting of a bridge or something like that, maybe I thought about the geometry of that and sort of distilled it and tweaked it into forms that I was more comfortable with. Almost like a bare bones, skeletal kind of language, trying to put across something with the least amount possible, a kind of economy to the work.
Gowanus is a perfect location for this kind of art making, which has already been sort of moved to the fringes of the art world. So we're right at home here in this kind of industrial neighborhood. We're going to be doing many more projects here. If you're interested in what we're up to, go to minusspace.com and sign up for our email mailing list. We are curating shows every 3 months, as I mentioned, here in our project space, and we'll be curating shows both in Manhattan, Maryland, and in Sydney, Australia next year. So we're really kind of expanding. So it's a good time to get to know us.